everybody, today I'm going to be talking about an introduction to integers. I'm going to be really talking about what an integer is and how to graph an integer on a number line. So, introduction to integers. The first thing we need to know is the types of numbers. So your whole life you have learned about what whole numbers are. Well, now integers, you're expanding those whole numbers into not only positive numbers, such as 7, 10, 100, you're also including those negative numbers. So whole numbers is part of integers, but integers now includes -7 and -100. So these are both negative and positive numbers. And then what includes all of them are rational numbers. So the bigger circle there are rational numbers. And this includes decimals, fractions, percents, whole numbers, both positive and negative. Okay, so it includes all those numbers. All right, so we're going to be focusing mainly on integers, and we'll be eventually evolving into rational numbers. So the first thing we need to know is what a number line is. Okay, there's two types of number lines that we know about. The first type of number line is the horizontal number line. This is one that you have seen probably since before kindergarten, where you counted up 1 to 100. So what's important about a horizontal number line is it travels east to west or west to east. In the middle is a 0, okay? It has to have arrows to know that it's going on infinitely. That's what a line is. It goes on infinitely in both directions. To the right side of the 0 are positive numbers, and to the left side of the 0 are negative numbers. Okay, so this is how you mainly set up a number line. We'll talk about scale in a little bit. The second type of number line is a vertical number line. And this goes north to south, or south to north, either way. And the 0 is in the middle. Again, you have two arrows that end your number line to show that it goes infinitely in both directions. And above 0, or going up towards the north, are positive numbers, and towards the south, or below 0, is the negative numbers. You'll see this a lot in thermometers. That will be usually the main example that is used. Okay, so let's talk about how to plot points. So when I look at my number line, okay, I start at a 0. Now I brought a compass here because this is an activity that we used in class to talk about. Actually, I am going to move my number line down a little bit so I can use this compass. As you remember in class, our circle kind of got big. Let me grab this guy, and I'm going to put him on 0 because that tells me that is the center. Okay, and now I'm going to drag it around. Okay, and what this tells me is that I have gone a distance to the right and a distance to the left. Let's call this distance to the right 1, okay? To graph the point 1, we need to make sure that we put the point on the line. Many of you are putting the points above the line or below the line or by the line. It needs to be on the line. Now, the number that has the same distance to 0 but is not on the same side of 0 is its opposite. So its opposite number, or the opposite value of this would be, you guessed it, -1, okay? The reason these are opposites are because they have the same distance of 1 from the 0, okay? So opposites mean that they have the same distance from 0. If we go back and we continue with the same distance from 0, let's turn this. Okay. So let's put it on 0. Let's move it up to make it a larger distance. So a larger distance from 0. And if we turned it, okay, obviously you can tell that it has the same distance from 0 since that's our center point. We'll call this 2, and the opposite, you guessed it, is -2. All right? So that's kind of the activity that we did in class to talk about why opposites exist. So let's graph a couple points. I believe this was one of your homework questions. So let's graph a couple points here. Okay. Let's graph the homework question -1, 4, 2, -4, 3, and 1. So the first thing I need to do is I need to make my number line. I need to figure out a scale. Since I know my biggest number is 4 and my smallest number is -4, I don't need to go very far on my number line. So if I look at this, I'm just going to go by ones. I'm going to put my 0 in the center, increase by 1, 2, 3, and 4, since that's my largest number, -1, -2, -3, and -4, okay? Again, I start at 0, and the number farthest to the left is smaller. So as I move this way, I get smaller, and as I move to the left, I get smaller. As I move to the right, I get bigger. Okay? So let's look at -1. So I'm going to look for -1. I know I'm in the negative direction in this side, and I know that I'm going to be one space away from 0. So I'm going to look through, and I see that -1 is here. Notice I put my dot in between the cross section and put it right in the middle. Then I'm going to pick 4. 4 is positive. I know it's going to be on the right side of the 0. So I'm going to go 4 spaces to the right, and here's my 4. 2 is 2 positive spaces to the right. I'm going to put my dot on 2. 4, -4, is 4 spaces to the left. So I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces to the left. +3 is 3 spaces to the right. And +1 is 1 space to the right. Okay? So now I'm going to look at these numbers, and I'm going to say which ones are opposites. As you can see, from 1 to -1, there is the same distance of 1 unit from 0. And from 4 to -4, there is also the same distance from 0. So those are both sets of opposites. Okay? Let's look at another question. Let's say we are going to graph -6, 8, 2, -12, +12, and -2. Okay? I'm going to look at my number line, and I see that my smallest number is -12, and my biggest number is 12. Now, I can go by ones easily. I can also make my scale by 2s. I can make my scale by 3s. I can make my scale by 4s, 6s, and 12s. Based on my numbers, 1s would be a good one. 6s would not work because I needed to graph 8, so 8 wouldn't really have a tick mark. 3s wouldn't work because 3s are not a factor of everything, but 2s would work. So I can go by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and I can go the opposite direction with the same distance between numbers of -2, -4, -6, -8, -10, -12. It's very important to know that if I have a 2 scale, which means that I increase by 2, I also need to increase here by 2. Okay, so that's very important. All right. So now, let's graph these integers. -6, 6 spaces to the left. 8, 8 positive spaces to the right. 2, 2 spaces to the right. -12, 12 spaces to the left. And 12 positive spaces to the right. And -2, 2 spaces to the left. 12 and -12 are opposites, and 2 and -2 are opposites. Again, because they are the same distance from 0. Okay? Let's look at another. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about some of these never questions, or these sometimes, always, or never. So here's the first one. Always, never, sometimes. So this was part of the classwork they had to do in class. The first question says, the opposite of a positive number will always, never, or sometimes be positive. Well, if I have positive 6, the opposite would be negative 6. If I have negative 7, the opposite would be positive 7. So going back, will the opposite of a positive number always be positive? That answer is never. Now remember, 0 is not positive or negative. It's neither, none. Okay? The next question is, what's the opposite of 0? The opposite of 0 is 0. And the last question says, the opposite of a number is always, sometimes, or never bigger than itself. So I want to know, is the opposite of negative a going to be bigger than a? Is the opposite of a going to be bigger than negative a? Okay? So basically what I want to know, if I have 6, is my opposite going to be bigger? In this case, the answer is no. If I have negative 8, is my opposite going to be bigger? In this case, it's yes. So the answer is sometimes. Okay? So basically the takeaways that I wanted you to understand today was how to make a number line, how to plot points on a number line. Please do not do this. When I want to plot -1, please do not do this. No, no. Okay? So I want you to be able to understand how to plot a point, and I want you to understand what an opposite is and why it is an opposite. Hopefully this helps you out with understanding what an integer is. Please stay tuned for the next lesson on integers. Have a great day.